Greetings. My name is Dr. Waddell Brooks Sr., your host, and this is Community Forum. Ladies and gentlemen, we have four outstanding young men to talk with us about the 6th Annual Blue and White Scholarship Gala, which is going to be Saturday, September 14, 2019. Now, there is something special about this gala, and I'm going to be learning right along with you as they make their presentation about it. First of all, I'd like for, greetings.
Greetings.
Okay. Yeah, welcome to Community Forum, and thank you, each one of you, for taking time from your busy schedules to be with us this evening. Charles Jones, you're a retired human resource executive.
Yes.
I'd like for you, first of all, before we start talking about the gala, to tell our listening audience a little bit about your personal and professional background.
Yes. Well, for 26 years, I worked with Kraft Foods. The last 15, I was an executive, traveled around the country. Mm-hmm. My last role, I was in North America, responsible for 10,000 employees. Now that I'm retired, I also have an HR consulting company, and we've been working with that for the last 5 years. And so that's what I'm doing now. I'm retired, and I'm enjoying every day.
Very good. Ed Bates, I'm going to give you the same opportunity that I gave Charles Jones. Tell our listening audience a little bit about your personal professional background.
Well, quite similar to Charles, I'm retired, but I'm a retired educator. I spent 27 years in the Regional Office of Education. Then I had another 10 years I spent through the juvenile justice system as a supervising probation officer for another 10 years. So about 37 years of experience. When I retired at the Regional Office of Education, I was the Director of Attendance and Student Support Services, and I also coordinated all of the school safety training that you kind of hear about and see today in schools. In my spare time, I also do consultancy with truancy and dropout prevention, help keep young people in school.
Well, Ed Dawson, you're the anchor man, and I'd like to give you the same opportunity. Tell our listening audience about your personal professional background.
Well, I guess I can join the retired group. I have recently retired from the Army, from the Army Reserve after 28 years of service. I'm currently teaching at Madison Area Technical College in Madison, Wisconsin, where I instruct students with disability. I'm a formal instructor here in Lake County as a special ed teacher. Also taught in the city of Chicago, and I've been doing that for the last 28 years or so.
There's a planned event that's coming up soon, and I want to give us enough time to talk about it, and I mentioned it in the intro, 6th Annual Blue and White Scholarship Gala. But what I like to do, first of all, is all of you have something in common. You're a brotherhood of conscious men committed, I emphasize committed.
That's right.
To closing the education gap. And Brother Jones, I'd like for you to tell us a little bit about that motto.
Yes. Well, this is our 6th event. We've been doing this for quite a while now. This year, we felt that education was key. We felt that education should be the theme. And so once we came together, my chapter, my local chapter here, along with Brother Dawson, our chapter is Nu Lambda Sigma chapter of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. We reached out to Dr. Roderick Page, who is the former U.S. Secretary of Education. He held the office in the years of between 2001 and 2005. Dr. Page is also a member of our fraternity. But the one thing that's unique about Dr. Page, he is the visionary, he was the architect, and the implementation of the No Child Left Behind, which was a huge program several years ago. That program it became world-renowned. And so not only are we bringing Dr. Roderick Page in, but we're also bringing Dr. Carmen Ayala to the event as well. And Dr. Ayala is the Illinois Superintendent of Education for the entire state.
The current.
The current Superintendent of Education for the state of Illinois. Dr. Ayala will be there. She and her staff thought that it would be great for her to be there. And we're also recognizing educators and administrators in Lake County for their leadership and the work that they're doing in our schools. So we thought this year we wanted to recognize those individuals who are really putting the time and effort into raising our kids and ensuring that they are growing up to be responsible citizens.
I mentioned, you mentioned by Dr. Page, he was involved with President Bush?
Yes, George W. Bush.
Bush.
That is correct. He was appointed by George W. Bush, and what's unique about that is Dr. Page is the first and only African American who has held the highest level educator role in the country.
This is fantastic. You know, we're concerned about our youth absenteeism. And I wonder if Mr. Bates would tell us about the impact of chronic absenteeism on vulnerable students' academic achievement.
Okay, yes. Well, it's just so happened, I'm a member of Omega Psi Phi fraternity, and so what you're going to see is organizations and groups working together, as evident by what we're doing here today.
Okay.
I happen to be the only one, and when there's two against one, there's always generally a little friction.
Okay.
But today we're going to keep it because of the time.
Okay.
But no, we all have a mission, if you will, to help bridge the gap in education, and we're always concerned with education, so we work together hand in hand. And it just so happened that I've been working as an Omega man with the Sigmas for the last few years. We've been looking at data together. We've gathered out at the Doubletree Hotel in Mundelein, brought community groups together, young people that are under mentorship, and then we spent a Saturday morning looking at data together about the academic achievement of these young people. We know that we are providing mentoring, but we know that so many others need mentoring, and so we are and have been working together, and this project is somewhat of a accumulation of our efforts looking for the last 2 years at how we can use data to get better faster and sooner. And it just so happened, without us knowing it, we know that we have similarities, we know that we're committed together, we know that education is always a theme of all of us. And so in doing so, I had no idea that Dr. Page was actually a Sigma first, and then I met him in 2005. When I say I met him, he brought together a group of people from around the country and this group consisted of department heads at the federal level, U.S. Department of Education that he headed up, the Department of Justice, DOJ, and Health and Human Services. And then they reached out to everybody in the country who were involved with dropout prevention and attendance and invited them to a 3-day conference in D.C., Washington. And what they brought out is data that looked at the current trajectory of where our young people were headed, and we were in crisis. And they actually called it what it was, a dropout crisis that we were facing if we didn't do something to work together to curb and prevent what the data was telling us. And so part of what we did when we left after 3 days was set goals, and then an abundance of research, academia, programs, new tools, and dropout prevention, to which we're still using today. And so for me, because at the time I was director of attendance at the county level, and so obviously I had this interest in that. But what he did and what he helped to do with others is really give us tools that we're using today. The confidence of going out there and identifying these young people, knowing who they are. And then the research told us that if these young people are not in school, and we have absolute data on that, and they miss X amount of days of school, they're going to fail academically. And so the impact was just too great for the country as a whole, and even more so for the minority community, particularly males, that we were looking at in terms of where we live and where we've grown up in. And so even today, we still use those same models. If these young people are missing school, the data tells us that they are off track academically, and as a result of that, they're failing. And so it's a way of looking at it, not just from the standpoint of say, a truant student, which is an unexcused absent, but any number of days. If a child is chronically absent from school, it disrupts the school, but it also put that child at risk of academic failure. And so we use that data to then track those students and then get them the support they need. And so that's why it's a gift for us here in Lake County to have him, because he's really kind of the instrumental in starting this movement. As Charles said, it was called the No Child. He was responsible for the implementation of it around the country. And it was based on, again, we would not leave a child, regardless of their economic background and academic failures in the past. The whole idea was to make sure we worked and kept those young people in school. And so in doing so, these tools and everything we're using will help us then to do what we are doing locally as well. And then we're elevating it a little bit now by bringing in, particularly I'm excited to have the state superintendent, and I'm excited that she accepted, because I think she sees the data, obviously, and it helps us to make decisions together. And then you realize that we're here as a community, and our goal is not to have any young person be left behind. So that No Child Left Behind law has changed in terms of the name. It's now called Every Student Succeed Act. And it places more responsibility on our schools to look at the impact of the kind of quality programming they were providing and be accountable for it. And so one of the things that new act does is require the school to give us the academic attendance and report out on any child missing 15 or more days of school, chronic absences, for any reason, even expelled, even suspended, even knowingly that they were sick. We want to know how many days, and then we want to focus on those young people to try and improve their academics and prevent them from failing. And that's one of the goals of this.
Now the state is actually directing this program.
Yes.
Right? Now, what is the school district's responsibility in carrying out this?
They have a huge responsibility, and some of it is going to be still new for them. They're still developing plans, although the plans are supposed to be in place by now. But it requires them to do more quality education support to young people. It requires them to look at attendance data in the district level. You should be looking at it if you're working with data and tools all the time, like every 2 weeks.
Okay.
But reporting it out on an annual basis and then looking at it from the standpoint of how did we do and what kind of challenges we have, and then what do we put in place to meet those challenges. But one of the things you would be able to see is, are we on track? And so we look at things like graduation rates, obviously the attendance data, the attendance rate in the school, and that kind of thing, and then that translates with dropout rates and that type of thing. But
and I emphasize this, is there a report card that the state gets?
Yes.
To evaluate the school districts?
Yes. There's an annual report, and we actually call it the school report card.
Okay.
And it comes out every year in October. We take that data then and take a look at it, and that's what we've been doing for the past couple years on a Saturday. We get together in a room with some other community folks along with us, as fraternal group, but other concerned citizen parents. Abbott had people that was there from their various divisions, but concerned about all young people. And the data then is telling us whether or not you're on track to meet those goals, and or whether or not we're seeing something in one of our districts, North Chicago in particular, we're concerned because we're seeing the graduation rate decrease, and it should be the opposite. And so as we then look to do programming to target those young people, then those young people, we know who they are by name, we know who their parents are, we know how many days they're missing, and we know if they're failing academically. And so by the same thing, the challenges become, are these young people in supported systems? And then are those systems meeting the needs of those young people?
Now, before I go into Ed Dawson, if you're really primarily concerned about closing the gap from the dropout rate. Now, if a child, and this is data shows this too, is having difficulty in learning by third grade, that child is going to have difficulty all the way through school, because once they get to the high school level and can't keep up, then they have a tendency to drop out. And what happens when they drop out? Then they're going to do things that cause them to be incarcerated. And this. So what you're doing, you operating from the beginning to get in the schools data so they can avoid this type of thing.
When they're off track, and particularly again, the emphasis and the onus, if you will, become more of the school's responsibility to ensure that we're doing quality programming. Okay. Looking at this is the first gauge, and then involving the whole community. We look at education as being a community's responsibility as well. We all have a responsibility. That's what we're stressing here. But we recognize our role, and we, as educated men committed, know that our role is more than just mentoring. We have experience and expertise and background in the things that were talked about. As you just heard us say, in our retirement years, we're still doing certain things. But with those experiences, we don't want to just be following what somebody may order us to do. We want to sit and work with you and look at this data together and recognize, as we have done, the experiences of Dr. Page, for example. We had no idea he was totally connected to our fraternal groups, but yet as a practitioner who had the experiences that we have, he knew that education is super important, and this law, which is still in place, is one of the tools that we're using to ensure all kids are receiving this type of education and support.
Well, we're going to come back to you and to follow up, but let's let Ed Dawson tell us a little bit about his role in this program.
Well, after coming, I think I met Ed about 13 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
And as working as a special ed teacher in Lake County, I probably dealt with the most challenging kids in the entire Lake County. I had those kids who were somewhat folks who felt that they didn't have much to give. And so what I provide, or this expertise in this, is how we bridge the gap between those who academically are not succeeding. And those are the kids in the group that we're talking about. Those are the population that we know that have circumstances that create or have gotten in the way to keep them from doing that. Thus comes to where our auxiliary groups come in to play, and that's where our group is a Sigma Beta club group, where we have an auxiliary group from our fraternity that focus on young men from 8 to 18. The objective is to take them from one aspect of their childhood and make them and develop them as they go along, so they'll be more productive citizens. Either they go into the services or they could go to college. But our objective is to give them character education as we begin to see them progress throughout their adult lives.
I notice you telling the audience about the Sigmas and I guess you got Kappas and you got all. I guess we call these inner Greeks.
Yes.
Yes.
You know, inner Greeks organization. And so what happened on this gala? Do you have all of the Greeks coming together?
Yes, what we do is we have sent every Greek letter organization within the Divine Nine letters, personal letters that say, you know what, we're having this event. Not only do we want you there, we need you there. We need your support. We need to come together with the intent and being committed to closing the gap. And show your support. And let's do it together, because we Yes, we are one organization, but it takes all of us
Okay.
cohesively to make this thing happen.
Boy, this is fantastic, and it seems like all of you are committed, and also for Dr. Page and Dr. Carmen and Angela
Ayala.
Ayala. Okay, they're committed to come.
Yes.
And especially since they were in on the initial forming of it, you know. So. Again, Brother Dawson, how are you creating opportunities for community partners? I know Ed mentioned to be successful, community partners have to come together.
Yeah, and I think the one that Charles just spoke about, the Divine Nine, we're actually educating. We're educating the group through this. This is one of the forums that we're doing that, showing them and getting them the awareness of understanding all this data, all these numbers, what it really means, but bringing those groups collaboratively together through these forums that we've been having, and that's how we're developing. And this is not normal, or should be, but this is not normal for us to have these type partnerships amongst the Divine Nine, where we're actually committed to formalizing a plan. And this is one effort to doing it. I think we got a few more coming on board, but how do we do that? And that's one part of this. That's why we do our annual ball. It's not just really for our fundraisers, but it's a educational component that we put into place to inform the public about what we're really doing and what the real issues are in the school. What in the school and in our communities, what is really affecting our communities. The root that we see is through our education system as the grassroots of why we have so many community issues in our local
What about
community.
parent responsibilities?
And I think that's where the parents, we did a lot of forums. The parent becomes informed on what they should know and what they get a lot of this information. It comes to home. What do they do with it? How do you interpret it? Right.
The student bring it home?
Right. I mean, the student bring it home, but then it's in some of the, and I'll take it for example of a student that has a disability has what we call a IEP, Independent Education Plan. It's this individualized plan is very difficult. It's cumbersome. How do you interpret what your child may need? That's written by a bunch of educators, and you have the parent there. So we do a lot of that. We do a lot of self-advocacy, and we advocate for a lot of the parents who really don't understand that, and then we break that down. So that's, as we bring them into, we kind of show them that there is a responsibility that you have in that. And I think they own that. They own that, and I think they'll own it, as they'll begin to see, because we bring the young men that we have, they'll be performing a little bit, but they'll begin to see their young person in a different light.
I wonder, Jones, what are some of the outcomes that you expect from the forum?
Yeah, this is a great question. Going back to both of Ed's point, I mean, the intent is once the community sees that we are committed, once they see that we're coming together as one group, you know, we're putting aside differences and we're coming together to make a difference. One of the outcomes will be, and Ed Dawson and I had a meeting with a principal, a superintendent just yesterday. The superintendent heard about all the great things that we have been doing. Requested a meeting, called us up and said, hey, listen, can you all come here to my headquarters and meet with us and maybe partner. Let's discuss how we can partner and how we can utilize what you all are offering to bring it in our school to help our children become better students and to help them graduate. So just yesterday we had a meeting, and it was a positive meeting. We see some great things coming out of this meeting, and potentially it will become a long-term partnership. So that's just one example of what we've seen coming out of this gala, or the word getting out, or being communicated about the gala and our focus and our commitment to the community.
Well, what are some of the challenges that a dropout faces, though? Just a bottom line.
Oh,
though.
yes. Well, you know, we talked a little bit about, you know, the idea of they're more vulnerable to crime and all of the things that we know statistically. But the idea of just not being able to have a good job, you know, that's what's going to happen to you in this particular era that we are in without a high school diploma. And so that affects everything. For us, we need those young people to be educated so they in turn, when they have children, they keep that going. But also teaching them about the kind of jobs they're going to need to maintain a lifestyle that they're going to want. You know, and that's one of the things we mentioned the community-based groups and others, and we're saying the word Divine Nine. For your audience, that means all the fraternities and all the sorority groups that are out there in the country, particularly African-American fraternities and sororities, which we have members from all. But those groups then, in a local area like in Lake County, we have it, and all of the groups come together and you take on this kind of issue that we're doing now. And so as you see that, fraternities, sororities, but other community-based groups who are concerned about the same thing, these young people graduating or closing the education gap, but they may have not worked together. And that's what we're doing now. We're calling for us to come together, have a solid plan, much like Dr. Page did in 2005 before he left the Secretary of Education position. But the impact is still being felt, and the tools and the resources are still being used. And so if we just do the same thing here and follow the example here, using data, using the tools, working together, and it doesn't mean that, you know, again, we say a responsibility to educate a child is everybody's responsibility, and it is. But we don't necessarily have to be designated to a role to say, go see the mentor coordinator. No, we want to sit at the table with you, look at data with you, and then plan in a holistic way. When the data reaches crisis level, for example, in one of our, North Chicago, at Current, that graduation rate is at 56.2%.
Wow.
We in the truancy and dropout industry call that a crisis. Anything less than 60%, even 60%, we have you on a list, 60% and under, we've coined the phrase. It came out of Johns Hopkins University, a professor named Robert Belfont through the Center for Education and School Development and Policies, came up with this term and used technology to track every school in the country that had this 60% or less graduation rate. And they coined the phrase to get your attention of your administrators, that these schools were dropout factories. And they represented 60% of all the dropouts in this country were coming out of, at that time, 2,000 schools. Now this is going back 10 years ago, but 14 years ago. But the idea is that we've dropped through support system, using these tools, everybody's focusing, being serious about it, as he was in 2005, as we continue this today, have brought about the changes that we're talking about. And so using the same thing here would be what we could do if we just sat together with a plan and then come up with what we're talking about.
Now, all three of you have shown your commitment by taking time to be on Community Forum this evening. By being on Community Forum, we have, if you have not been known all over the world, you will be after this program, because as they show on the screen, drbrooks.tv is online, and you can watch it in Australia and Japan or wherever, they're online, you know. So the information that you're promulgating tonight, you know, everyone will get this information and want to do something about it. And speaking of commitment, I would say this, that here's a young, and I can't, Alpha, or Sigma, or what? Omega, what you're Omega?
You talking about me?
Dawson.
Oh,
yeah.
no, I'm a Sigma.
You're a
Phi Beta
Sigma, you know.
He's the Omega.
I'm the Omega.
Omega, and you're the
Sigma
too, you know. But I mean, you're working together as a team. to try to get. And it has to be a commitment because you're working in Madison, Wisconsin, right?
Well, I am, but I live, I reside here. But a lot of what I do at the technical colleges is kind of what you say the challenges are.
Okay.
I'm able to see it at the collegial level, that if we don't fix it and we don't work with the lower level, the elementary, the high, when those students get to the collegial level, they really struggle. And that's where we want everyone to get to a point where if they choose to, they should have the skills and the tools to get there. And we know that they normally possess that. It's just how to give them the resources.
And one of the things we, the Divine Nine that we talked about too, is that we come from the same communities. Now, a lot of times the kids don't believe us because not almost, all of us are highly educated.
Okay.
We graduated college. But we came from the same communities, the same neighborhoods. We had the same culture that they have. The difference is we did go ahead and pursue our educational pursuits, but that's because somebody, similar to what we're talking about doing with the young people, showed us the way. And we're doing the same thing. We're going back. But we're also using the tools to say we're going to defend ourselves against not having access to support. Because in there, if in fact we say, for us, we're targeting North Chicago, and I keep saying that because I'm concerned we are with that high number of students not graduating. We've been here, I have, for 33 years, and I've been in this field all this time. This is something I have never seen. And there's no reason at this day and age with the tools and the resources and the commitment of resources, I mean millions of dollars to help us, that we should not be going in the opposite direction. And that's why, again, sitting at the table with individuals, working out a plan is the goal. We want to work with, and we do have something for everybody, but the vulnerabilities that Ed is talking about is special. Once we see that special education IEP, if you will, then that is something that the school districts have a legal obligation to provide. Vulnerable students may not have the IEP label or being labeled as special ed, but they're vulnerable for all of the reasons. They're not learning, they're off track academically, they're failing, and they may have homes that don't support them and do all of those things. But the tools for working with them is the exact same kind of tools that they have in special ed, but we have to apply that. So to do that, we help to sit at the table, look at the problem, devise a plan, and then look at if we received it or not in terms of the outcome.
Do have second chance opportunities, though, right?
Yes, but you might say the word second chance. Generally, it sounds just like it is. Those are programs in the alternative world that says they've been removed and they're placed in something that says, this is kind of your last time. But with the Every Student Succeed Act, the opposite is occurring. We are holding schools accountable for the outcomes of those young people. And that's why, again, there's no reason for us not to be focusing in on that school that has the lowest dropout rate in our county, the lowest graduation rate in our county. The resources are set up in tiers, if you will. Like you said, with ed, those with the special ed that we talked about, there's a set of funds set over here to work with them on that. Once we identify vulnerable kids and they fall in this tier of missing that many days of school, there are resources, and we just have to look as a community to see if those resources are being applied in the same manner. But if those children are failing today, those districts are failing in terms of providing quality support. And that's why it was so refreshing when we talked about the superintendent in a school, I don't know if you called the name, but that responded right away. That's telling us that's a superintendent who understands that support and that the schools alone can't do it. And so we have different tiers, and in there, we don't have, even among us, we have some specialized skills. Ed and I, as we talked about our experiences and vulnerable kids, and that not everyone can do that. That's a set of skills, but you have to identify who can. We have everybody that can do everything, if you will, in our community. If we sat at the table and then we work that out. And so for that tier group of kids, that's specialized. And we bring in the people who can help turn that around. And so that's why, again, when you start looking at how we can turn this around, it's not really on the kid as much as it is on us to provide that kid with the same kind of quality education.
I'm concerned about holding the school districts accountable, because if a school district has you mentioned about the low achievement rate. I know I was raised in East St. Louis, and rates are at the bottom of the list. And I came to North Chicago and found out it's right next to East St. Louis. Well, it appears that the state allots more money to those low achieving schools to try to bring the achievement up. Why do they give them more money and instead of having them accountable for what they have?
Well, in terms of the dollars, some of it is earmarked based on the issue. So if you have that large amount of young people not succeeding,
okay,
it does require, the higher the risk or the vulnerability of the student, the more expensive the cost. I mean, you're looking at one-on-one services in terms of maybe counseling support. You do need alternative programming that's quality and follows standards. But a lot of this is just revisiting, your current practices and your procedures, and they may be outdated. I'm just giving that as an example. But if you haven't looked at it, you may not know that those, for example, if you are currently using a practice, and I have to use North Chicago again because of that graduation rate, whatever that practice is, it's not working.
Okay.
In terms of improvement, because you're going down in your graduation rate. So those policies may be obsolete, and they may not be lined up with industry standards, include alternative school standards, i.e. this is what we do, this is how we teach that child, this is how we test him. Special ed does, that's what Ed is talking about. Well, we can do that with regular programming for kids who are failing like that. Specialized training, different testing, giving them time to make that grade, individual, one-on-one tutoring. There's a lot more, but you look at that together with data and seeing if they are receiving that. And so in the cases in the past, they have not. That's why we passed the new laws. That's why we now look at not what you say. We know through research and data and studies that if they've missed 15 or more days of school, it puts them at risk. Now, that doesn't mean every child is going to fail, but we have to notice you. So if you have a building where half of the building is absent on a daily basis,
Yeah.
then the academics are going to be off for that child regardless. And so it does require more resources. But the key to the community is to see if those resources are being applied to those children and to those kinds of support. And we do have the ability to sit at the table with individuals to look at that together, because we are all in this together. That child, if he doesn't graduate, is not buying a new car. Now, say that to the salesman who wants to sell a new car, or to the person who is, quote, expecting that child when they reach a certain maturity to buy a home. And I want to build and sell you a home. Not to mention that child being taken out of the tax base. And for us, all being retired, we are concerned about that because we don't want to mess up our Social Security. In other words, those young people who are not graduating and not getting a job, they're not paying into our state's taxes. But again, we have infinite knowledge and information about what that affects. So every student that we lose, X amount of dollars we lose in tax dollars and revenues and things like that. But for us as a community, we know the value and the power, particularly of male in those homes. And the more we can get them educated, the more those family members later become educated as well.
I mentioned about earlier about a scorecard that's kept on school districts, but periodically I punch a computer button and get a scorecard from my Senate and House representatives from the NAACP. They send me a scorecard at least once a year, maybe twice a year, how the representatives are voting on certain issues that the NAACP emphasize, you know. So scorecards are very important.
Absolutely.
So if these school districts are shown what score they have and so forth, they should be interested in trying to improve,
Yes.
you know. I remember I didn't know what's going to happen to my career when I graduated from high school. The counselor. No, this was the principal. They called me from East St. Louis, and I was shocked. I was the first black to graduate from East St. Louis Senior High School. Just happened to be the only second semester senior when the schools became integrated.
Okay.
Right? That's how I became the first. You know.
Okay.
But I got a letter from him, a phone call, I'm not sure which one, that I had been received an academic scholarship to Illinois State. Now, had I not received that, most of the students were going to Southern colleges. Not saying that HBCU schools weren't good, but that's where most of them were going.
Yes,
You know, and my mother said, "I don't want you to go to Southern school." You know, she just ahead. You know, so I chose Illinois State, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
But had he not called, and I mentioned about counselors and so forth play a great part. And another way to keep from losing students is the College of Lake County, the community college. They have remedial training for the student. Is a safety net to catch them so that they won't drop out. They will go
Absolutely.
ahead.
That's one of our valuable resources, the College of Lake County. Yes.
Right. Well, Brother Jones, we talked about community groups and other stakeholders taking part, but it's vitally necessary, just like we have the Brotherhood doing it. What about churches? We have North Shore, Ministerial Alliance,
Yes.
and so forth.
Yes.
Have you contacted that group?
Yes, we have. Actually, what we've also done is every member of our chapter, we go to church in Lake County.
Right.
And so we've reached out, I had those members to reach out to their pastors and their congregations to get them involved as well as support.
Okay.
Another thing that we're doing at this event, which we haven't talked about, is we're making this a book drive. We're collecting books.
Okay.
And those books, Phi Beta Sigma has a technical school in Ghana. And so we're going to send some of those books that we collect to Ghana, and we are collecting books that we'll give here to, locally as well. But we're handing out or we're sending out boxes that has labels on them to churches. And we're asking those churches to communicate within their congregation and their parishioners to donate new and gently used books, particularly the books that will be used locally are elementary age, school age books. So we're collecting books from the churches. We've given out invitations to the pastors, and we're looking for significant participation from the churches, the local churches.
This is fantastic. Well, before we come to the end of the program, I have to ask a question. What do you anticipate from the guest speakers?
Great question. Here's one thing that I would say from Dr. Page.
Okay.
Most people don't know that Dr. Page kind of grew up the way we grew up. He's from Mississippi, a small town in Mississippi.
Just to put part, because I'm from Mississippi too.
And you know I'm from Mississippi.
Yeah, okay.
Monticello,
But, okay.
which is southern part of Mississippi.
Okay.
Small school. He also went to Jackson State undergrad,
Okay.
my university.
Okay.
And so one of the reasons why we selected him is we said, you know what, first of all, let's go for the highest level educator in the country.
Ah.
And it's our philosophy, if a child sees someone who looks like them, mentally they will say,
Okay.
I can be what I see.
Okay.
And to be able to see someone in that capacity, we thought Dr. Page would be the ideal person. Also, Dr. Page, a lot of people know this, but Dr. Page has written 2 books. One of the books is about hope, the power of hope. And the other book is around closing the education gap.
Ah.
And so it just aligned perfectly with what we wanted to do here in Lake County. So that's why we're hoping that when he comes, he would have a story to tell about his journey. His journey from rural Mississippi, small town, experiencing the same thing as every other kid in Lake County, particularly young African American kids in these schools. And he could tell a story, talk about his journey, and inspire all of us. So that's one reason. I mean, that's the one thing that we're expecting from him. From Dr. Ayala, what we're expecting from her is, in my opinion, to be able to bring the highest level educator in the state of Illinois, to tell her story, to talk about her vision, her goals, her expectations, and for the educators and administrators in the room to hear her give her expectations. We feel that would be very impactful. And to have her right here in Lake County, feeling it, breathing it, experiencing the same thing we're experiencing, we thought that it would definitely sell the story. We thought that it would definitely be impactful for our educators and our administrators.
Well, I mentioned about the scorecard on results of the voting of state reps and senators in the country, but do you have, or will you have, published results of what you're doing so people will know?
Well, we plan to continue this. This is just a part of the beginning, if you will, although we've been meeting and looking at data for the last few years. But this is still just the beginning. And so we will continue to look at data to see if we're seeing improvement. But we also measure other things, the number of partnerships we continue to develop, the other groups that we hope to bring on so that we have a solid plan as a county, as a whole, and that we also use it to focus in on what the problem is, the greatest needs. And so that's like anything else. You would target the greatest need to get better sooner. And so together, both of these speakers can do that, I think. And the same thing with the state superintendent. I believe she may be the first female
She is.
state superintendent,
Yes.
because I've been here for 33 years and I've never seen.
Yeah, she's the first female of color.
Okay.
She's the first female of color to be the state of Illinois superintendent.
State of Illinois
The
superintendent.
first
Yes.
female of color.
And I didn't know that. That's a
Yes. And so all of this
Along
together is just the beginning, because this is a journey, and what's happening as we work with kids, we always tell them, and we tell the community folks who may not work with them on a professional basis like Ed and I have done. But in the community, we have to commit for the long term. Children is a K-12 program when we start talking about educating them for adulthood. And we try to kind of prepare them to go off once they receive their high school diploma. But we can measure all of the impact that we're talking about from here, from the 14th, from the goals that we have, when we come back together on an annual basis to look at data. One of the things that Dr. Page, he probably is keeping up with this, but even if he wasn't, I'll be happy to share with him that at the time that he brought everybody together in Washington, we had a 75% national graduation rate. As a result of that meeting, everybody got together and some groups took the lead to put together plans and then took those plans and say by the year 2020, we did that in 2010. By the year 2020, we're on a 90% graduation rate. We know where we are now, 75. And so as we speak, the latest data that just came out from the Grad Nation report, we're at 84.6%. So we went, and that's a tremendous amount of kids that's back. That's millions of kids that have received high school diploma that otherwise was off track not to. It's all kind of dollars that are being put back into the economy, and not to mention, self-worth of these young people now finishing up what they were starting in terms of their education. So this is just the beginning, but we can come together, and I hope, just on a small scale, I'm personal with North Chicago along the lines that part of my programming that we did through the regional office targeted that building along with all of the buildings that had the lowest graduation rate. And the support program showed significant improvement for those students. And those programs received national attention around this country, congratulating us on improving the graduation rates and the academic performances of students of color and low income that were ordinarily not seeing the same kind of academic results. So we'll still have a ways to go. 2020 is here, obviously, and we're not going to be at 90%. We know some of the challenges, but we know the strength as well. And so we're still going forward. And so here in Lake County, we want to do the same, and we can gauge our new partners, how many we bring on. But I'm hoping when we walk away on the 14th, we can look at that school report card this time next year and say that we brought up the graduation rate in North Chicago.
Okay.
And continue to do
Well, Brother Jones, I don't mean to keep picking on you there, but you're an outstanding Omega, right? A Sigma.
They got it. That's all right. He gonna switch it.
Your brotherhood in the
Yes,
brotherhood,
yes,
you know.
we are brothers.
But tell us, where is this gala going to be, and how can
Yes.
people get information about it?
Yeah, the gala will be held on Saturday, September 14th.
Okay. Yeah,
At
we
the-
have it on the screen.
At the
there
Doubletree
now.
Hotel in Mundelein.
Okay.
The actual networking session and networking hour starts at 6. What's unique about this gala is we also have a VIP session where distinguished guests.
Will that cost more?
It doesn't cost more, but it costs a table.
Okay, I got you.
So if distinguished guests and others will have one-on-one time to actually talk to Dr. Page and Dr. Ayala and ask them questions and get their input and insight on certain things. The social hours from 6 to 7, and from 7 to 9 is the program, and after that we will have a live band providing some entertainment.
Yeah, I didn't want to end the program without emphasizing on on how people may get information to go to the gala.
Yes.
So, is there a location where they can buy tickets?
Yes. You can go to www.bcofnls.org and purchase a ticket on the website.
I assume that these are the Sigma colors, huh? Blue and white. This is the 6th
absolutely.
annual Blue and White Scholarship
Absolutely,
Gala.
absolutely.
Right.
That is right.
Okay. Well, you have some final comments. Ed Dawson, we want you to, because you have really made a commitment coming from Madison.
You know, I want to say, first of all, thank you for forums like this. And Ed and I sat down many hours of tossing this around, and we really passionate. And I think sometimes my fraternity brothers see the passion come out of me. But we're really passionate about making a change. But the forums like this is really how we get the word out on what we're trying to do. We need more people at the table. We need more people with specialized skills. And I think forums like this helps us to get that word out on what we're trying to accomplish. Coming to the gala, you'll see what we've done and how we've transformed some kids that those will some folks have probably written off. But when you see them and you see that men can make, and to other young men can make an impact, this is why we need forums like this.
Thank you very much, and this will be the beginning of others, because I'm sure that I'm learning, as you can see, about the gala and about the organization along with my listening audience. And like I say, our listening audience is worldwide, and learn about it. But do you recruit members, or how do members find you
For our
for your organization?
organization?
Now, you mean our fraternal organizations
Yeah,
individually?
yeah, do
Oh,
they?
yeah,
We'll give you some
we
time. Go ahead.
2 minutes. 2 minutes.
In our graduate chapters, those individuals who have gone on to college, we all do. And we still have opportunities to do that. But if they just want to come along and work with us in terms of this community projects and things like that, they can just be a concerned community member.
Absolutely.
Because you have, I made a list here, you have inter-Greek organizations, which is all of the, then you have community groups, and there's a ton of community groups.
Absolutely.
The PTAs, PTOs, and so forth, exchange clubs and Rotary clubs and so forth. I mentioned about fraternal organization, community colleges, and I mentioned about the remedial training that they provide and make themselves available to going to speak to community groups. By the way, I'm sure that you brothers make yourself available to go and speak to community groups then too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, we recognize that there are others out there, and but we again prioritize
And
the
retirement
educational
groups too,
shift.
right?
Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, and so as we go forward, yeah, we would love to have everybody come to the table and work with us.
Absolutely.
This is everybody's problem.
Well, I want to thank you very much for, again, Ed Bates, retired educator, Charles Jones, to my immediate left here, retired human resource executive,
Yes.
you know, and then Ed Dawson, anchor person to my extreme left, instructor, Madison Area Technical College, right in Madison, Wisconsin. So I want to thank, ladies and gentlemen, we hope that you have enjoyed listening to the Brotherhood, you know, speaking about their 6th annual Blue and White Gala. There's a scholarship gala. The theme is a brotherhood of country's men committed to closing the education gap. It's going to be Saturday, September 14, 2019. Keynote speaker, Dr. Roderick Page, former U.S. Secretary of Education under the Bush administration.
That's correct.
And Dr. Carmen
Yeah.
Aya, okay, she's the current Illinois Superintendent of Education.
That's correct.
And I didn't know that, so I'm learning something too. So we hope it's going to be at the Doubletree Hotel in Mundelein, Illinois. This has been Community Forum. My name is Dr. Waddell Brooks Sr., your host.